So the patient advocates of the VA are no longer on the cut list.
Well, we're not on the, we're on what they call the exempt list. And exempt lists are what they consider critical, to run the facility. So we're not scheduled now to get cut as of today.
Well, phew.
Change, but
what are they cutting? Like, I can't even understand how they can cut 80,000 people. Like, what are they cutting?
It's kind of funny because it's changed a lot from when they initially came out. Now, from what I hear, and I don't know how factual because I'm not involved anymore in the meetings of the higher ups, and it seems like now though what they're talking about cutting is more like we have VISNs that are Veteran Integrated Service Networks. They're kind of like, for Tulsa, they're kind of like our home office. We've got 23 nationwide. And I've heard they're going to cut that down to 10. And most of those are all like higher up GS leveled employees. So I've heard.
Oh. Like what do they do?
I mean, like when we do some things like as patient advocates, when we enter like clinical appeals for like home health, and if it's been denied at our facility level, they go to VISN. VISN is like the scheduling manager of oversees all of the scheduling for our whole VISN 19 is what we're part of now. It's a lot of upper management, setting guidelines and policies and things like that. I guess that's a good way to explain. I'm not exactly.
I know there were certain services that they did not want to be provided, or funds used to be provided, that are kind of political, like the abortion and the trans and all that stuff. And I was wondering if some of those cuts were from maybe people providing those services.
Yeah, some of it was. Like we have a group here that's called the housed our like Veteran Experience Officer, or VEO, and our I'm just losing my mind. What's it called? Our system redesigns people. There's about 5 of them in this group. I've heard they dismantled that. Like our whole health, like is just more of. I think it's a valuable thing, but like they have a lot of things they work with veterans, like exercise and eating well, and just things that whole health life, like life balance type things. I've heard they're doing away with that. So a lot of anything that's not really veteran front center, front focused, like I've heard that they're looking at a lot of that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if that would constitute 80,000 people across the nation. That's such a large number, considering the amount of actual veterans being served across the nation. May sound like a lot of people, but how many millions? I mean, we're a large nation, 400 million now, so it's small. We're a small amount of the populace of the United States, so 80,000 that's a big number. And yeah, so, and then I was reading last night that they had, I don't know if it's all the way approved, but they had just approved a bigger number of amount for the VA, and they were chastising, the Democrats were fighting for amendments because of the abortion counseling services, and I think the trans, whatever it is that they do, and then they were chastising them. They're saying you're cutting 80,000 people, but yet then you're putting more money into what? Well, it's obviously not going to salaries for 80,000 people. So they're trying to say, well, we're putting more money in, but it's going more towards the actual care, direct care for the veterans. They were like trying to make it, I don't know, but I was just like reading that,
not read and, like look at a lot of, I try.
Well, I want to be proactive and know what's going on. And I'm a legislator watcher, so I don't read the media. So I follow the legislators, and I sometimes read the bills, even though it's extremely tedious to read bills, the way they quote things, and you have to go research another statute to know what they're talking about in this statute. Is so annoying. But, and that biggest bill that they did is like almost 400 pages long. Oh my gosh. But, I do have it on my to-do list to read that. But I do watch and actually read the legislation, so.
Yeah, like we did a lot of things like from this, from different branch of higher up at Washington. I try to read all those, and if it says, reference this, I do that. Yeah, I try to stay away from like the media type things because it's just.
Oh yeah, you can't believe any of that from either side, in my opinion.
I don't watch it. I'll just watch, sports or something. But I try to read some. But yeah, I've kind of gotten to the point. I was looking at yours. I'm a few years older than you, and I'm getting close to retirement. So I just have kind of told myself I'm just gonna, keep my nose to the grind, do the best I can.
Yeah, I feel bad. Yeah, I hope that none of those people that were in the 80,000 cut, I hope none of those people were people who'd been there for a long time. If I thought at first they were saying it's just people who were like, I think probationary employees, like that's kind of how they made it out.
Yeah, but what happened that was so difficult, and hard to understand is like I had a buddy that got cut. He, though, was in a probationary period. He had been here 9 years, but he had gotten a promotion. Well, he was in the police side of it. But his promotion requires a probationary period, so it said probationary on it. And that's where I was kind of like, it was done with the wide sweep. Anybody that said probationary, they sent that letters and cut. But they ended up calling him back.
Yeah, see, that's what I was worried about, because a lot of people don't realize that the way when, like, I've known, oh my gosh, I could just name people off the top of my head that I've been going to this VA for so many years now, that there's so many veterans that they don't stay at the same specific job in the VA for their whole career. And there's veterans who, when they serve 20 in the military, then they serve another 20 in the VA. They're there for for however many long years until they retire. And so they may go to another job, and initially it's probationary, just like you described. And those people, so I think a lot of people are just like really not really being that upset, because they're just like people that hadn't been there that long, and it's not really okay to think of them that way. My issue was how they fired them, because there was a lot of veterans coming forward and saying that they were told that they were being fired for poor performance. And they're like, look, if you want to cut us because of budget issues, do that, but don't insult my work. That was what upset people.
It's me. That's the way my thought was. Is if you're going to let me go, be honest about why,
right.
But they did, again, that cost a lot of money, though. They did let a lot of people go. They brought a lot back.
I hope so.
And so now it seems like things, though, since a lot of this came out, like you were talking about, letting 80,000 plus go, but the focus is really on the veteran, is that we can't let all of that work, personnel go and still maintain good customer service, accessibility, and things like that. So it seems like it's kind of died down or slowed down, and maybe those numbers might be changing a lot less,
Yeah, I think there was a date that this was all supposed to take in effect. The cuts that were supposed to take in effect, has that date come already?
Yeah, it's. I want to say like at the middle of this month was supposed to be some, but it keeps getting pushed back further and further now. Now I keep hearing like mid-July, we're supposed to know a little more about the actual, sizing of what we're going to be at number-wise and things like that. So it's kind of ever-changing. Like I said, every day you come in, where it's bad is you hear some stuff factual and some that, somebody heard from somebody so-and-so who heard from some, and it's not always.
Yeah. I do know that when Pete had, I can never say his name, Hegseth, was selected. I do know that he advocated, and I know there's certain people in the political world that advocate for this. He was an advocator for privatizing the VA. And so there's been a lot of, as I'm preaching to the choir here, a lot of war over that, especially when they first came out with this, what did they first call it? Choice and community. I don't remember what they first called it when it first came out. I think it was like 2014 or 15 when they first rolled this out. Yeah. Anyways, I think they just call it, community care now. But there was that, I think when they first came out with it in 2015, I think is I remember when I first got my card, when it had like TRICARE, TriWest and all that. And they were at war over that budget, of where the money went to. And it was going to these insurance companies, and it was controlling the appointments. And they went to war. And I felt like they caused problems on purpose so the VA could get that control back, so that they could be the ones making the appointments. And so, and then they started, this is what I was told, as somebody who has the spine disease, and I rely on, finding surgeons for, different parts of my spine and different advanced surgery, this and that. I got really concerned, honestly, when they started bringing in, they were supposed to be getting some specialty surgeons to work at the VA. And I have felt that you can never really get good specialty doctors to work for the VA. They're always crappy. And not all of them, but I can write a book on most bizarre stories that other staff members have told me, other veterans have told me, things that I've experienced over my 30 years of being a veteran. And because they make so much more money in private practice, and for them to come to the VA and they don't really get that great a salary, it's not good. I would much rather go to a specialty doctor outside the VA. So I was a little concerned when they were saying that they're going to have their own neurosurgeons and this was like, oh my gosh, I think a couple years ago. So I'm wondering what's happened with that. Are they still planning to bring in their own neurosurgeons in Oklahoma?
I think we have neurosurgeons. Like we do some surgery, like thoracic cardiology things. We don't have it here, but they have it in Oklahoma City. So we do internal transfer things with them. But we're still short on specialty doctors right now.
And I think the movement to privatize it, I don't think that they're going to push in for new specialties. I remember back in, I think it was 2016 and 17, when I had to have, my spinal cord was compressed and I had to have this surgery, and I couldn't find a surgeon. I mean, I went Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma. I think I even contacted surgeons in Kansas, because they ended up having to fly me. They had to fly me out to Arizona because it's such a complicated surgery, in the thoracic, double fusion to decompress the cord. They have to go through the lung. You have to have a team of surgeons. And when you're working through the VA, especially in this combo like choice program they had, you had to have every surgeon that they put together on this team to do the surgery had to have, their clinic had to be approved in the network for the VA, and the hospital had to be approved for the network for the VA, and we could not put a team together. And so I had spoke to the chief of neurosurgery in Dallas, Texas, and he was so nice, and he was very candid with me. He told me, he said, we can't do this surgery. He said, he told me that they lacked like proper equipment to do a lot of the surgeries, and that was kind of frightening. You know what I mean? They just didn't have the team to do the surgery. It's so limited. And so, yeah, there was nowhere in any VA, and I don't think in the USA, well, not in my region. So they flew me out to Barrel, Brain, and Spine in Arizona because, they had these big, huge hospital, I think it was St. John's, and really, really good team of doctors. And they had everybody, every kind of spine surgeon that you could need was like, boom, right all there, so. Yeah, if you ever have to have that type of surgery in your thoracic region, Barrel, Brain, and Spine in Phoenix, Arizona, like they're the best. And I was so thankful to God because they referred me to this surgeon in Tulsa, and he had actually trained there, and he was like, it doesn't matter who's in the White House. There's a lot of things that have happened and still continue to happen that doesn't have anything to do with political party,
right?
And I think I don't think a lot of people get so caught up in political parties, and it's just, I can't keep friends with people. They're just like, you're the Democrat or Republican. Depending on which side you are, will depend on whether or not I'm going to respect you. And it's just like, you just don't get it. It doesn't matter.
For the veteran is my goal. So
right, exactly. We're all in the same. We're one party. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
So you know what?
And
Yeah.
let me know if you find out anything, if it goes well.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad they're keeping you around. Yay! That actually made my day to hear that. That's definitely a plus. And I'll pray that they will keep you on the exempt list. So, yeah, buddy.
Keep in touch, and if you need anything else, just holler.
Thank you so much. So